Welcome to the Productivity Podcast. Delighted again to be joined by Dan Will, Marketing and Insights Director at MRI Springboard, for our bi-monthly catch-up around Footfall. I think April Di was looking good from comparison. And welcome back, by the way.
Thank you, Simon. Great to be here. Yes, April was good, helped by Easter, of course, and some good weather over Easter. So Footfall in April was 7.2% higher than March, which was great news. And May also saw an increase, but a much lower increase of 1.1% from April.
But that's two in a bounce then. So two
in a bounce, and it's the first time we've had two in a bounce since August last year. So that is that shows some resilience, which is really good news. Really good news.
But May was a strange old month, wasn't it? Because we seemed to be bank holiday after bank holiday. The weather, as we got towards the end of the month, was good. We actually had a nice bank holiday, which is amazing for this country. Interest rates went up again, and maybe it'll go up again in June. So there was lots going on, wasn't there?
There was. It felt like we were working a permanent 4-day week, which was rather nice, actually. So the beginning of the May, obviously, the month, we had the early May bank holiday. That was lovely weather, and footfall went up then. That was great, and high streets did particularly well in May, and they always do well around bank holidays, Easter, May bank holidays, because people want to be out and about, particularly when the weather is good. So early May was strong. The coronation was odd. I mean, obviously, we've never had a coronation in my lifetime anyway, and certainly not while we've been tracking footfall. And the weather wasn't particularly great. I think everyone remembers it absolutely poured with rain on Coronation Day. And footfall was about 20% lower on that Saturday than the previous Saturday, when it had gone up about 12% from the Saturday before that. So it was a bit of a up and down early start to the month. And then late May bank holiday also was good, partly because the weather was good. So, but it was all based around high streets, shopping centres and retail parks. Footfall decreased. Everyone was pouring into our high streets.
So good news for high streets, and as we kind of track out of May into June, the weather's been great. I mean, it looks like, I don't think we're going to see rain for probably another 10 days or so at the time of recording, looking at the weather map. So that will still push people towards high streets?
Absolutely. So where we are at the moment, you and I we were chatting at the beginning of June, and footfall continues to rise on a week-on-week basis in early June. This may be a slight hangover from bank holiday. Some people may still be away. Obviously, over the bank holidays, we saw this huge uplift in places like coastal towns and historic towns as people went out for day trips and for short holidays. So we're still seeing a bit of an uplift, but we're anticipating that that's going to lessen as we go through June, as you say, the interest rate rises. Inflation's still very high. There's lots of talk about food inflation. It's still about 19%, hugely high. That's all going to kick in, and consumers are going to have to, we believe they're going to rein back their spending in advance of their summer holidays in late July and August.
And this is the first time that we've probably seen people have to dip into their pockets for holidays. Maybe they've got credit from lockdown holidays, that kind of stuff. So again, it'll be a bit of a test in terms of the impact.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people who took holidays last year had paid for those holidays pre-COVID and hadn't taken them. So it was a bit of a freebie, really. But this year, of course, they are having to dip their hands in their pockets, as you say, and actually buy the holiday. And there's lots of stories around the fact that holidays are more expensive this year, inevitably, with fuel price increases. And the tour companies are having to push some of that onto consumers. So it's going to be a costly time for people if they do choose to go away.
And things like the ongoing strikes. I mean, we've got the rail strikes, we've got the hospital ones. I read yesterday that I think, is it every weekend over the summer, Heathrow baggage handlers are potentially in ground crew going to be on strike. Does that have a significant impact on footfall?
Well, it did initially. When they first started last year, in the summer of last year, there was a huge impact on footfall. But people are sort of just getting used to them now because it's so frequent. People are organising their working life around the strikes. And because of the prevalence of hybrid working, people just work at home. So we're not seeing a huge decrease in footfall and a widening of the gap from 2019, but we're not seeing a closing of that gap either, and that's the problem. We're still significantly below in overall terms from the 2019. We're nearly 11% below it in May, which doesn't sound too bad, but in high streets it's 13%. In shopping centres it was 15%. So and that's not closing because people aren't going back into towns and cities because they literally can't get there, and it's more convenient to stay local. So that's where it's starting to see its impact.
Yeah. And is that split? Is that split in terms of leisure and kind of general retail roughly the same still, or is that changing?
Yeah, I mean, in May it was interesting. We saw a greater improvement in footfall at the weekend, clearly because of the bank holidays. Um, People were out and about more at the weekend than the week. So the gap in footfall was bigger at the weekend. So we are seeing the leisure trip being very important. And that's likely to continue. Generally, footfall at the weekend has recovered more, and there's a smaller gap from 2019 at the weekend than there is during the week because a lot of people are working from home for part of the week. I think I might have mentioned it before, but every quarter at MRI Springboard we carry out a survey of consumers trying to get under the skin of what's driving these footfall changes, and we ask people about how they work and therefore how they shop in light of how they work. And over 50% of people surveyed are working at home for part of the week. And actually in May, the proportion of people working at home for part of the week was greater than those who work out of the home for all of the week for the first time. So this hybrid working is really becoming very deeply entrenched in our working culture, and that's not going to change. And because that means that we're in towns and cities and shopping centres, not so much retail parks, but towns, cities and shopping centres are less during the week, footfall stays lower relative to 2019.
Yeah, so it's probably a challenge back again to those hospitality retail companies to review their schedules, make sure they've got their kind of strongest foot forward for evenings and weekends so that they can deal with that peak demand and they're not disappointing.
Absolutely, and you've hit it right on the button, actually, Simon. We're seeing, we're right at the beginning of the curve in terms of how consumer behaviour is changing as a consequence of how we work. But we're seeing an even greater emphasis on Saturday because people tend to either be in the office or working at home during the week and therefore not able to get out as much. But they are going out more on a Saturday, and that's becoming more important than it ever was. So certainly understanding when people are visiting and allocating staff accordingly is absolutely key.
Yeah, so I was just thinking back to my retail days. It was always based around kind of on relatively poor data at that point, I should say, because it was a number of years ago. I'm showing my age now. But yeah, Saturdays, evenings, weekends was always the key. And I think, historically, that's when we used to fill it with probably our least experienced staff. So our students, our more transient population, where I think now it's about getting that balance right, that flexibility, but also getting, your key colleagues and experienced staff there just to drive that conversation experience and hopefully then, footfall and conversion.
Absolutely, and of course, the less we go to places, the frequency. When the frequency declines, we want a better experience. And part of the survey that we carry out asks what's driving people to places. And the most popular and the most commented on factor is actually product. So they want to see product, but there's a whole range of reasons, of which experience is one of them. And of course, if all your eggs are in a smaller number of baskets, you need to make sure that trip is the best it can be for people, and that involves having the right staff to direct people to the right stock, having good knowledge, making sure that their shopping experience is as good as it can be when they're there.
So it sounds like it's going to be an interesting summer then. We've seen, I suppose, a couple of ups and downs as we've started doing these series. 2 months on the bounce in terms of positive, but still double digits below where it was a couple of years ago. And as we head into the summer, you've called out all those reasons why potentially it might drop or plateau. So for retailers, hospitality companies, a real challenge, I suppose, coming forward back to that competitive market you talked around, staffing experience, knowledge, availability. Again, on social media over the weekend, I won't name them, but there was a certain supermarket where they were just showing empty shelves. So all the fresh eggs, ironically, all the ambient just completely cleared out due to technical issues with new stock ordering systems. So it's going to be a real interesting summer, and the strongest ever will survive, won't they? But I'm sure, unfortunately, and we've seen the likes in the news of Wilco's, there's some that are really going to suffer.
Absolutely. And it's about making sure that you understand and you're keeping on in touch with the changes that are happening. So data, I mean, I would say this because I'm a data geek and I deal with data every day, but data is there, and the data doesn't lie, and there are small changes percentage wise at the moment, but they shouldn't be ignored because they are starting to lead into bigger changes, and they're manageable at the moment, but you need to understand what's happening in terms of when people are shopping. And basic footfall data is perfect for that, because you can understand relative to each day when people are coming in the store, and many of our clients also understand the dwell time within the store, and also the performance of the location by day and by time. That's really important, because clearly stores feed off the success or not of the place in which they're situated. So understanding those factors and understanding when the peaks and the troughs are, and then accommodating and allocating resources to match that is really, really important.
Yeah, as ever. Brilliant, Di. So we'll pause there. We'll return next month and see where we got to in June, see if some of those holiday things crept in. It'll be, I suppose, people getting away that have not got kids, or people that kids have finished early because of exams. So that the start of that trend, we'll see where it ends up. And, well, fingers crossed from our side, the weather's nice, but I'm not sure if you're a destination shopping centre or regional shopping centre, it's going to play into your hands.
No, absolutely. The hotter it is, the more people want to be outside, really. So, yes, we shall see. It'll be an interesting month. Looking forward to seeing what the results say.
Excellent. Thanks for your time again, and we'll speak soon.
Thanks, Simon.